On November 25, 1970, Yukio Mishima, a celebrated modern novelist, walked into the eastern headquarters of the Self-Defense Forces and took the commanding general hostage. He stepped out onto the commanding office's balcony and looked down at 800 assembled soldiers. For the next several minutes, he delivered a desperate, shouting speech, demanding that the military rise up and return Japan to its traditional values. When the soldiers mocked him, he stepped back inside and committed seppuku, the agonizing samurai ritual of driving a blade into the stomach. Mishima was wealthy, famous, and living in a remarkably prosperous, peaceful nation. We have to look at what he saw happening to his country to understand why an intellectual of his stature pursued such a violent, archaic death. In the decades following World War II, Japan modernized at an astonishing pace. The country fully embraced Western capitalism, filling its cities with new technologies, towering corporate office buildings, and massive waves of consumer goods. Mishima diagnosed this rapid shift as a severe spiritual sickness. In his view, the nation was now dominated by the economic man, a citizen who evaluated every decision based solely on financial costs, personal benefits, and physical self-preservation. He developed a desperate desire to resurrect what he called the Japanese soul. To do it, he turned to a secretive text compiled over 300 years ago that served as his personal operating manual, the Hagakure. Mishima meticulously orchestrated the hostage-taking and the ritual death to follow the precise liturgy of this ancient book. Compiled in the early 18th century from the teachings of a samurai named Yamato Tsunetomo, the Hagakure presents a deeply unsettling central thesis. The way of the samurai is found in death. Tsunetomo pushed beyond the risks of active combat, demanding warriors visualize their own destruction in every possible form, being crushed by earthquakes, burned alive in fires, or cut to pieces by swords. This illustrates the psychological mechanism at work. By treating death as a certainty every morning, the dark core of acceptance expands, stripping away the panic of survival. Once fear is removed, the warrior is left with absolute focus, completely unburdened by the anxiety of survival. For the samurai, constant preoccupation with mortality removed the friction of survival, clearing the path for a life of decisive action. This extreme physical discipline extended directly into their socio-economic reality. The samurai were lethal enforcers, but they absolutely rejected the accumulation of financial wealth. Under the traditional Confucian class system, society was strictly ordered. Farmers and artisans were valued for what they produced, while merchants were placed at the bottom. The act of haggling over coins was viewed with intense disgust. A true samurai measured his worth in land and koku, specific units of rice. Seeking trade deals or chasing financial gain indicated a weak mind, too focused on earthly comforts. Instead, they operated on the philosophical concept of thymos. As we see in this pyramid chart, basic animal survival sits at the wide base, but human motivation climbs higher toward a glowing apex, the intense desire for recognition, honor, and profound pride. The samurai code represents an extreme historical attempt to subordinate biological survival to a purely abstract social identity. This brings us back to the Eastern headquarters in 1970. Mishima's suicide was a violent ideological collision between the ancient concept of thymos and the modern world. He felt intense disgust for a society composed of people who prioritized comfortable, long lives over any sense of honor or duty. His public ritual at the military headquarters served as a weaponized aesthetic statement designed to physically jolt Japan out of its consumerist apathy. He sacrificed his life specifically to force a modernized, complacent nation to look into the uncompromising mirror of its own history. Mishima's political coup failed entirely. The soldiers did not rise up, and the fanaticism and extreme violence of the samurai code remain deeply unsettling today. The bloody reality of his actions stands in stark contrast to how we live now, in society structured almost entirely around generating wealth and extending our lifespans. Yet the Hagakure leaves behind a haunting philosophical question. In a world optimized for comfort and safety, what do we actually value more than our own survival? The legacy of the samurai serves as a chilling reminder. A life lived without a willingness to sacrifice for a higher purpose is a life only half lived.